Some of them are. Right now, NASA's own impact risk chart lists 2020 as having an increased risk of dangerous object activity. Any rock in space more than half a mile wide would pose a risk to the entire population of the Earth if it crashed into the planet's surface. There are 90 of them currently close to the Earth. None of them are currently believed to pose a threat, but even one of half that size would be enough to shift the magnetic poles. Some of this information might sound far-fetched, and we don't blame you if you're thinking we're overstating the risk right now. However, there's something else we want you to consider. If there's no immediate risk of a global disaster, why are so many of the world's super rich buying safe holds in high, dry lands? Have they been told something that the rest of us haven't? Not only are they buying safe land, but they're also buying it in places where conditions are ideal for coal mining, farming cattle, and otherwise being self-reliant. In the USA, the ideal places are to be found in New Mexico, Montana, Texas, and Wyoming. Billionaire John Malone currently owns over 2 million acres of land in Colorado and Wyoming. Amazon Supremo Jeff Bezos has acquired 400,000 acres of land in Texas. TV mogul Ted Turner has 2 million acres of his own split across North Dakota, New Mexico, Nebraska, and Montana. Stan Kroenke has taken on over 250,000 acres of Montanan land. We could go on, but Bill Gates has gone even further. The Microsoft founder is building his very own micro-city in Belmont, a city he views as being a cutting-edge utopia of technology, manufacturing, communication, and distribution. In short, he's building Metropolis in an area which is currently nothing but dry land. This trend, by the way, is not uniquely American. Farmland is currently selling at record rates in New Zealand, Australia, Great Britain, and Europe. Curiously, helipads are appearing outside the mansions of the super rich at almost the same rate. It's almost as if they're planning for a quick getaway. What, then, will the world the super rich are leaving the rest of us to look like? We've looked closely at Scallion's predictions, and here's how he sees the world post-polar shift. Be warned, these predictions don't make for comfortable viewing, but we provide them purely for illustrative purposes. We're not saying this is definitely what's going to happen, but it's a possibility. We start with Africa, which would ultimately end up being split in 3 thanks to the widening of the Nile as sea levels rise. The area from the Mediterranean Sea to Gabon will be swamped by a new waterway, and thousands of years of ancient Egyptian history will be lost as Cairo disappears under the rising tide of the Red Sea. Madagascar will effectively cease to exist, other than a couple of points which will remain above the water. As some of the land sinks, other areas will rise. Around Cape Town, a brand new mountain range will emerge from beneath the water, with a fresh landmass below it. Lake Nyasa and Lake Victoria will merge into one body of water and become a tributary to the Indian Ocean. As for the coastline of Central Eastern Africa, everything on it will be lost forever. Asia is next up, and the bad news for Asia is that it's already an area which suffers from serious seismic problems. A pole shift would just make those problems far worse. All it would take is a 9% shift in the Pacific Plate to sink almost all of the Japanese islands and mostly drown the mainland. Taiwan would be left completely underwater, and Korea would lose something in the region of 80% of its land. The argument between the north and south of the land would seem pretty pointless then. The coast of China would retreat hundreds of miles, submerging coastal cities. We would completely lose the Philippines. Much of the land we now recognize as Asia would be lost, but it would be replaced by new land revealed by the moving seas. How many people would be left alive to move to that land is a different question. The Indian subcontinent would be physically buckled by the geological impact of a polar shift. The elevation of the country above sea level would be lowered, which, as we already know, is bad news when the sea levels would be rising so dramatically. Seeking higher ground to avoid the catastrophe in India might not be possible, so people would be best advised to flee to the Himalayas or Tibet instead.